Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Obscure Undead Music Reviews. I'm Maus.
And I'm Azy.
And this week...
Morwan!
Yeah!
We've talked about Morwan in the past. End of last year, I think it was, we talked about their previous release, which, I'm blanking.
It's called Umbila Mogila.
Oh, yeah. Umbila Mogila.
And this album stood out. We were reviewing a ton of European post-punk. We were doing Polish post-punk, Russian post-punk, and then this came out, and we were like,
ooh, this is neat.
This is a little different.
Yeah.
Even though they're from Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we were like, oh, this is interesting. This is a little different. This has some really interesting like rhythm patterns and stuff like that mixed in with the post-punk that we're used to, and we thought it was really unique. And then, we kind of expected that with their most recent release, which we are reviewing today, which is Zola-Zemlya, released on Feel It Records on October 16th. And this took all of that like really interesting experimental like rhythm and sound stuff that they were doing on their release from last September and just blew it up. Absolutely blew it up in a really, really amazing way that listening to it, you're like, this is the logical next step for what this one-man project out of the Ukraine is doing. But we could have never, ever predicted it.
Yep. So before you're like, oh, okay, this is very similar to what is recognizable as Eastern European post-punk, but now they have led a path of their own sound, and there is quite a lengthy explanation on their Bandcamp to explain why their sounds are different from most post-punk you'd listen to.
Mm-hmm. And that is because, as I said, this is a solo project of Alex Astawi, who is half Ukrainian and half Arabic. And he pulls a lot of these Ukrainian and Arabic folk music elements into the post-punk that he's doing. And
it's
it is
not just
so cool.
the use of instruments, it's also how the songs are laid out. So you'd listen to the vocal melodies and like the chanting rhythmic style of traditional Arabic music, but with a post-punk beat.
Right.
And you're like, wow, how do you just seamlessly mix those two together?
Seamlessly. I cannot emphasize that. Like you have all of these like really cool, like traditional Arabic like instrumentation and like compositional elements, but then you also have like these punk and post-punk elements, and it's and instruments, and it's all blended together. Just
it's exactly blended
perfectly.
It's not like 3 songs are Arabic and 2 songs are Russian. It is every song from beginning to end seamlessly blended.
Seamlessly.
It's like a new ice cream flavor.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely something that we have never ever heard before, and it caught us completely by surprise. I grabbed this track, this album, and I was like, ooh, neat, Morwan. And then I started playing the first track, and I was like, oh my God. And I got like 30 seconds in, and I had to throw it at Maus. And I was like, Maus, listen to this. You need to listen to this.
And the tracks are pretty long.
Yeah, they're all 5 minutes plus. The last track is like 7 minutes.
That's like over 3 death rock songs.
Yes, this is like a 15, 16, 17 death rock song length.
Yes.
But one thing that I really liked about all of these elements across the entire album is that each song, it doesn't follow like what I would consider a traditional, like Western rock, Western post-punk sort of format. You have a lot of rhythmic elements going on in each song, and it might at one point be this really fast-paced picking style on a technique on a guitar that or it might be on a traditional instrument that we don't know what the traditional instruments are.
No, I wish I could tell. On track 1, you could hear like a flute, like an Arabic flute.
Yeah, they're like, I think there are flutes used on other tracks as well, but yeah, definitely on track 1 most prominently. But usually it's string instruments. But then what's really cool is underneath all of it, you have, like these cool bass lines that are sometimes doing a very post-punk thing, but other times like echoing like the very Arabic sounding melodies and drums. There's like a drum kit.
Real drums.
Yeah, real drums.
And each track as I listen, I just get astounded that it's a solo project.
I know. There is so much going on across multiple different instruments. And some of it is like sounds very analog and some of it sounds digital. Like there are synth elements on what is it, track 4?
3. I heard it on track 2, which is the title track, and track 4.
Yeah, because track 4, like a lot of these songs led in with like a really atmospheric instrumental sort of tone setting thing, but track 4, it's just this like almost monotonous like synth that just kind of bumps up and down, which I thought was really
just a little
cool.
Synth backbone there.
But all of these tracks are really solid. What I really liked about track 3 is that usually we got most of Alex's like kind of monotonous, like almost hypnotizing dark vocal delivery, but on track 3 it felt very punk and he's just like yelping and making all these noises.
Track 3 also takes a break in the middle, which is something very punk to do. Like you would hear in the middle of like a live show, like they would break in the middle and they'd like introduce their drummer and do a shout out to the audience and then go back into it. It sounds like it's about to do that. And then the instruments kick back in again.
And one thing I like about all these tracks as well is that they're not hook driven. Like a lot of the post-punk that we're used to listening is, where it has, like a really strong, like melody hook or something like that. And I think that's because like you have a song can go so many different places. Where you have just a lot of elements and rhythms and textures that flow in and out of each other in a single song.
Yeah, when I found myself humming the music, it wasn't necessarily the chorus. There aren't really choruses. Mm-mm. It's more like the verses that repeat themselves throughout the track, and that's like your melody, your melodic flow.
Right. This is one of those, we really do need to learn how to read Cyrillic.
I know, and I translated some titles. I don't know if it helps at all. The title of the album, Zola-Zemlya, roughly translates to ash earth or ash is the earth.
That's not like overly surprising considering that this album, the lyrics, which are in Russian, or I assume you're Russian, are inspired by nature and the musician's relationship with nature and personal experiences.
Track 3 is called Black Sun. Track 4 is called Waves. Track 5 is called Somewhere in the Distance. I skipped track 1. Everything is Like a Dream is track 1.
Really? I like that.
Everything is like a dream.
Yeah. And one thing that kind of surprised me is that this album was released immediately on vinyl. Usually we see a vinyl release, sometime after the album's been released, I guess to kind of, gauge interest in the album. But like whoever must have made that decision had to listen to these 5 tracks and been just like, oh my God, and gone full bore right into like vinyl.
It's amazing there's only 5 tracks. Like, where's the album? Give us an album.
Give us more of this.
Give us an album.
Yeah. But yeah, I gotta say my favorite track is the 7-minute and 12-second track 5. I really liked the way, well, the melody was nice too, but I really liked the way, like, sometimes that melody would be played on, one of the folk instruments, but other times it would be played on the bass, and the bass is just sliding around all over the place, and I loved it.
I think I liked track 2, which is the title track. I just really loved the vocal melody. That's the one that I've been humming all day. It's got like this chant-like tribal intro, and I love it.
Yeah, so strongly recommend that you go check out this album. It's probably going to be the most interesting thing that you hear. And I mean interesting in like a good way, not like you listen to something, you're just like,
that's experimental and weird.
No, this is interesting and like compelling interesting.
And even though the album comes out on October 16th, you can actually go to Bandcamp and listen and purchase it now.
Yeah, which I kind of really don't ever understand why that happens, but release dates don't matter. Release dates don't matter. But yeah, absolutely a growth from Morwan's, what was it, September 2019 release?
December 2019.
December, okay. And like I said, it really does feel like a logical next step in the kind of, experimentation and composition style that he was already doing back then.
Good job, Morwan. You got a fan. You got a couple of fans.
Got several fans. Like we were doing our Subculture Shock last week on Thursday, and we had Hate Me Are on, and they were just like, and I was listening to something by this band called Morwan, and Michelle and I were just like, oh my God, Morwan, yes, that release, yes. And they're getting some attention. I Die, You Die wrote a review of the album as well.
Cool.
And I hope they gain a lot of traction because this is so damn unique. Especially when, like, I know that we've said it before, that we kind of feel like post-punk revival is falling into some very predictable tropes that you find on everyone's album, which, It's cool the first time. It's cool the second time. It's cool the third and fourth time. But, like, the 200th time, it becomes less interesting.
Yeah, it's about to back itself into a corner. So it's good to
maybe
bands that are breaking out of that, like using it as a foundation, but then breaking out of it.
Yeah. So, in summation, go listen to this. Hopefully you won't regret it. Tell us what you think in the comments. Did you like it? If you hated it, I really want to know what you hated about this because I can't find anything in my heart other than love for it. Yeah, everything's going to be down in the description. We're going to link to their Bandcamp where you can pick it up and any other social media that we can find. And we will see you next week with another review, hopefully as interesting as this one. Probably just as exciting. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in. And as always, thank you to our lovely Patreon subscribers or donators. Our people who help make these episodes possible, everyone who watches us on Twitch, everyone who, comments on YouTube. Oh, and if you made it this far, please hit like the bell, because I guess the bell is now the new thing because YouTube keeps like fucking around with their rules on the back end and no one really gets what's going on.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Gosh, we really should monetize our channel just to get it up in like get it up in the algorithm, but
No.
Maybe one day. Maybe never. Who knows? See ya. Love you.
Bye.
This is